The company Lamzu came out of nowhere and instantly created one of the best mice on the market, the Atlantis. It's well priced, extremely light, solid shell, wireless with USB-C charging, and has amazing overall features along with adjustable D-mouse for Minecraft players. This mouse is my new main.
He's Eric, and I'm Devin, and before we talk about the performance in Minecraft, we're going to go over the shapes, spec, and other features of this mouse, as those will ultimately decide whether this mouse is for you. It's stick around until the end of the video to see how this mouse compares to others we've tried when it's placed on our tier list.
The Atlantis is an ultra lightweight, medium-sized symmetrical mouse with side buttons on the left only. It's a solid shell with cutouts on the bottom to save weight, and one for dongle storage. It's 123mm in length, 66mm wide at the back flare, around 58mm wide at the grip, and 38mm tall. The Atlantis feels very similar to the XM1 in hand. Like on the XM1, the extremely wide back flares on the Atlantis let me pull the mouse firmly into my palm in a claw grip, resulting in good stability when tracking targets and giving me great confidence when flicking. Both the Atlantis and XM1 also feature similarly low button height, which combined with the tapered grip results in good precision for a mouse this size. However, the mice do differ in a few ways. The peak of the hump on the Atlantis is more towards the middle of the mouse, whereas the X1 has a hump more towards the back, which results in my hand resting on top of the Atlantis, whereas it is more braced against the XM1. The Atlantis also has larger ledges at the middle of the mouse and a smaller front flare. The more aggressive ledges actually let me get a more consistent grip on the Atlantis than the XM1. The less aggressive front flare makes the Atlantis a bit safer for a relaxed claw grip. Overall, the Atlantis might just have my favorite shape on any mouse, though it is not extremely safe. I would really only recommend the Atlantis to those with medium to large hands who use aggressive claw, relaxed claw, or pincer claw grips. Thanks to its well-optimized shell and PCB, the Atlantis weighs only 55 grams, which is even lighter than the Logitech G Pro X Superlight, Pulsar X2, and the upcoming endgame gear XM2W. Not only that, but the Atlantis feels perfectly balanced in hand, more so than even the GPX, which leads to the mouse feeling almost weightless. The amazing weight and shape of the Atlantis make it my best performing mouse in both tracking and flick aim, though its larger size makes it feel less precise than some small mice for me. Despite the low weight, the Atlantis is pretty well built. There's only slight flexing even if you really squeeze some portions on the side and bottom, but nothing that will bother you in game. The main buttons use Huano blue shell pink dot switches, which feel amazing. The click weight is on the medium side and the buttons have an extraordinary amount of tactility. There is some pre-travel towards the front of the button, but this doesn't affect where I actually click at all. The buttons also feel very spammable due to the well-implemented post-travel, which makes the clicks feel softer. The one complaint I have is that the buttons feel just a bit stiff. The side buttons use Huano black shell red dot switches, which are hilariously tactile and loud. Seriously, these buttons, like all other side buttons, feel dull in comparison. There's minimal pre-travel, but a significant amount of post-travel, which combined with the heavy clicks, can make the side buttons a bit harder to spam. Lamzu has said that they will resolve the post-travel issues on future batches, but otherwise these are among my favorite side buttons on any mouse. The scroll wheel uses a TTC gold encoder, which is known for its quiet yet defined steps. However, the Atlantis has a very loosely tensioned scroll, making the scroll much less tactile. The scroll click has a medium actuation force and has pretty good travel. Overall, I would have preferred a more defined scroll wheel with a lighter scroll click like on the X2, but this scroll wheel is not bad. Here's a sound test of all the buttons. The stock skates on the Atlantis are PTFE and feel amazing. They have a medium amount of surface area and rounded edges, leading to a smooth and fast glide while still being controllable. I don't think there's any need to replace these aftermarket skates at all, as the material and design are pretty much on par with core pads. There's also an extra pair of skates in the box in case yours wear down. The first 1,000 copies came with an additional free set of glass skates, which Lamzu will be selling separately in the future. These skates offer a very smooth glide with extremely low static friction but higher kinetic friction than the PTFE skates. Glass skates aren't for me personally, as they feel a bit too slippery, but if you are a fan of them, I can give the Lamzu skates a recommendation.
The Atlantis has top-of-the-line specs with a 3395 sensor, latency comparable to Pulsar's new X2 and Glorious mice due to similar firmware, and has adjustable D-mounts up to 0 milliseconds, allowing for the mouse to quad-click fairly easily with little practice. It also has a very respectable 300 mAh battery rated for 70 hours and lasting around 9 days of heavy use in our testing. However, the charging cable is a bit stiff, but due to its high angled stress relief, it does keep the cable out of the way. Before we get into the performance in Minecraft, it would mean a lot to us if you give us a like and subscribed, as we're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Now back to the review.
For jitter clicking, the Atlantis is okay, but the slightly stiff buttons do make it a bit hard for me to get a consistent click speed. I can hit 13 to 15 CPS, but it's not as consistent as on the X2 or XMR, for example. For butterfly, the Atlantis is very good. I can hit upwards of 25 CPS on both buttons. The only concern I have is the buttons might be a bit too narrow for people with very wide fingers, but most people should be fine. The coating on the Atlantis is not the most grippy, but the slight texture as well as the long and flat buttons allow me to long drag fairly well. I can hit upwards of 40 CPS consistently, and I've peaked around 60, which is more than enough to God Bridge, extend, or reduce. Lambzu is also working on some grip tape that would make drag clicking a lot easier. In terms of value, the Atlantis is $90, which is only $10 more than the Glorious wireless mice, and Lambzu steamrolls Glorious in terms of quality and features. With such a similar shape to the XM1, some have been calling the Atlantis the endgame gear killer, and honestly I'm inclined to agree. I can't really recommend anyone wait for the XMW anymore, as the Atlantis is $30 cheaper and has similar specs. Additionally, Lambzu has a 49-gram Atlantis Mini scheduled for release in November, which I'm also very excited for. The Atlantis is my personal favorite release of the year so far due to its fantastic shape, weight, specs, and performance, and easily lands in S tier. Despite the shape being less universal than the Pulsar X2, the Atlantis places above the X2 due to superior QC.